And you can
Right.
okay, the recording. So almost two-thirds comes from tuition. The endowment's not doing very much for you guys in terms of providing cover, which is why you're so tuition dependent. There are issues with how much of the endowment is being spent. A very small percentage of the endowment is being spent, but we want to. I got some more work to do on that, but it's just not covering very much. And you also don't have a huge number of. You could tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I see, you don't have a lot of people. Not all the students live on campus. You have a lot of commuter students. Is that accurate?
Maybe off campus. I don't know about commuter,
But
but
not in the dorms. You're
right.
not you're not getting the dorm revenue, the housing and dining revenue that other universities like your size are getting. And I don't know if you guys know that or care about that. But less than 10% of your revenue is coming from dorms, and it's usually 15, 16, 18% of revenue, which tells me, well, obviously you don't have a major football team, you have a hockey team, which doesn't, so there's no revenue there. Auxiliaries is sports is lopped in with housing and dining. But I don't think that many people go to your hockey games or ever have. I can't imagine people are paying to go to your games, or that not that many.
Um,
I mean, they sell out, so I'm like, but
Yeah,
the
but are they charging that much? They sell out, but are they charge? I mean, I mean, this place is a $500 million a year place. I mean, are they charging enough to generate even $10 million of revenue? I doubt it. Uh, so it's not, it's just not a huge, it's not a huge revenue stream. The
interesting.
revenue stream is housing and dining, and I don't think you have that many students who are in the dorms. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I could be totally wrong about that, but that's what the data shows me, for whatever that's worth. And in terms of the grants, there is a solid amount of research done there. It's more than 10% of your revenue base, which for a private university your size is actually pretty big. So there is a decent amount of research being done. I have a different view than all of you. I do not think your research grants are on the hook. Uh, I just did a presentation at Sarah Lawrence, which is a small private college this morning in New York. They also think they're losing every dollar that the federal government is giving to them. What do you think Trump's going to do with all these dollars? He's going to put them in his pocket and go home? He's not touching your University of Denver or Sarah Lawrence College. He wants to go after Harvard. That's what he wants to go after. Uh, I don't think he's touching anything else, and he legally is not allowed to do it anyway. And the Pell Grants he can't touch. He cannot touch the Pell Grants. They don't have the legal right to touch the existing Pell Grants. Congress passes the Pell Grants, not the president does not have the executive authority to do that. No, everyone says, "Oh, he'll just do whatever he wants anyway. He'll just ignore the courts." I don't buy that. I just don't think we live in that lawless a society that he'll just do whatever he wants. I refuse to believe that's going to happen. That he's going to take everyone's Pell Grants away, take everyone's NEA grants, NSF grants away. I just don't think it's going to happen. Uh, so that's my view. I know everyone wants to, say it's going to happen, but no. What's he going to do with it? What's he going to do with a science grant? What's he going to do with all that money? And it doesn't save them that much money anyway. So it just doesn't make sense that he's going to take all your money away. So that's my view. Uh, to me, the key for Denver is enrollment. That's what the key is. So 62% tuition. That's the key from where I sit. Everything is enrollment driven at your place more than anything. And that's why your administration gets nervous when enrollment declines a little bit. And that's why I'm here, to be honest with you. They're nervous. But I'm also going to show you they have more money than they claim, and there's too many of them. There's too many admins at Denver, which you guys probably knew. I mean, when I show you the end of this presentation, the number of admins getting paid a lot of money is really just alarming, alarming, surprising. I don't know and maybe you guys will tell me what all these people do. Uh, but uh, it's just it's too many. It's just too many. It's just I'm not just saying that to make you happy. I tell the truth. There are too many. There's too many upper level admins there. There's just too many of them for a school your size. But you guys probably know that or knew that. But I'm going to show it to you explicitly. So if you want me to go, I'll start. I'll start going.
Start there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start out with the biggest misconception is that they're poor and they have no money.
That's what I've been saying.
So they're not poor and they have plenty of money. So first of all, this balance sheet is not the end of the world to say they're great, but I can't tell you how many of these I usually start with a balance sheet and say you can't claim because this balance sheet is great that okay, everything's wonderful. However, it is very nice to have over $2 billion of assets and only $300 million of liabilities and almost 1.9 billion of net assets. I mean, look at the debt down here. It's down here. Look at the assets and the net assets are growing. We're going to talk about how much of these are really reserves. How much does this university really have laying around that they could spend and do what they want with? That's what we're going to get into. But this balance sheet, and I don't say anything to make you feel better or worse. I tell the truth. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to feel better. You're not going to like the faculty salary data. You're not going to like. And I'm showing it to you anyway. So that's just, Aaron said I could, and I'm going to. You guys aren't going to like it. That's just the way it is. I'm just going to show you what it is, and you'll do what you want with it. But this is an incredibly strong balance sheet. You do not see balance sheets this strong in higher ed. I mean, such strong assets, debt hardly any at all. I'm not saying they should go out and borrow a bunch of money, but they hardly have any. And if you look at the orange line, they borrowed money in 2017. The administration has not borrowed a single dollar since 2017. There's not been a significant borrowing. All they've been doing is paying off the debt since that time, which is great, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. It shows it's nice that they don't have to borrow and that they have the resources to pay off the debt. That's great. But don't tell me you have no money when you got 2 billion of assets and 300 million of liabilities. So let's look at these assets. And I heard in the chatter before we were talking about the endowment and stuff like that. So let's look at what we got. So cash and investments, most of which is in the endowment, $1.3 billion. It's grown from 800 million in 16. So I'm going back a decent amount of time. I mean, we're talking 9 years here. So that's a decent, to me, that's a decent, that's a decent time period to look at. It's not just 1 or 2 years. So that's significant growth. Why are the investments growing? I mean, just look at the graph. Why is this happening? Well, a couple of things. The red to the green was the stock market had a boom in 2021. So in general, the stock market has done well over this period. Now, this year, as we sit, under the orange man, sorry, whatever, it has not done well in 25, but it's only April. It's only April. Uh, he's doing everything he can to make the stock market go down. But hopefully someone will slap some sense into him, and by the end of the year, things will get better. But right now, the market is down, and I guarantee you the cash and investments are going to get are lower than they are now, than they were at the end of 24. There's no doubt that's the case, but we'll see. We'll see what happens as the year goes on. Anyway, the other reason why cash and investments go up, because the first reason being the stock market. Second reason, every year Denver takes more money than they spend. They take in more cash than they spend, and so they have surplus. And what do they do with that? So they invest it, which is nothing. That's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with that. So in terms of the buildings, there was a major building, as you see, in the 19 to 20 period. They brought a new building, but since 2020, I'm not on your campus. But since 2020, there has not been a significant new building to come online on your campus. There may have been some minor repairs, and I mean, we're talking about $770 million. So if there's a $5 or $10 million addition, you're not going to notice it really in these numbers, but you may notice it, in the particular building you're at. But there has not been a significant new building. I've been to your campus. We were there. The AUP had the Summer Institute in Colorado. 2013 or 2015, I think 2015. And we did some stuff at your campus. And as I remember it, it's pretty you can't, there's like no free space to like build stuff. I mean, as I remember it, it was kind of city-ish, and it's not like there's a bunch of empty land lying around. You could build a bunch of buildings. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I remember. You don't have a lot of space to build new buildings, I don't think. So that's why. I mean, I got to believe that's one of the reasons why things are. And this deposit with bond trustees, you borrowed money from you borrowed money and you kept it to build stuff, and now there's no money left because you're not building anything new. That's what happens with that money. But you can see the investments, you have the cash. This is nice to see this cash grow like this. In terms of the liabilities, you have debt that you borrowed money in 17, nothing since. Accounts payable is just normal bills that are paid but not that are incurred but not paid yet. It's the opposite of these receivables. Receivables are basically you bill people, mostly students, and they don't pay you right away. That's what that's for. And the payables and the receivables, I mean, the payables are a little bigger, but still. And deferred revenue is when you collect early from some students who pay early. This is students who pay, you bill them before the semester starts. They pay you before the semester starts. And then over time, as you teach them, uh, the deferred revenue account just goes away. And then this process starts up again next year. So you can see the reason the scale looks so, I didn't make this scale like this to make it look really small. I just wanted to put it on the same scale of the assets. So you see, when you look at these two graphs together, you see the assets and how strong they are, and then you see how little the liabilities are. It just, there's no manipulation at all. Because when you make a graph, and a lot of you guys all use Excel or whatever you use, when you make a graph, it automatically goes to the top of it would stop here. And this graph, this liability thing would look really tall. But to me, that's misleading. And I think it needs to be seen in that context. In a similar vein, I break down the net assets. So I think the biggest contribution I can make today, in my estimation, is to talk about these reserves and what they are, where they're from, and what they're for, and how they created. So I'm not going to, you're not accounting students. I'm not treating you as accounting students, but I am going to go over what's going on here. So the net assets, 1.8 or $1.9 billion. I'm sorry to go backwards. It's the difference between the assets and the liabilities. So we're trying to figure out, of that $1.889 billion, what is it? So there's two main categories and then other subcategories. The two main categories are without donor restrictions and with donor restrictions. With donor restrictions means that's 919 million, almost half of it is not free at all to be spent. That is, people have given money to the endowment or to the university and said, you cannot spend the principal until my daughter graduates, until 20 years pass, until my husband dies, until my wife dies, until we both die. Whatever it is, people put all sorts of restrictions when they give money. Most of them are time related. And eventually those restrictions lapse. My daughter graduates, 20 years comes by, one of us passes away, we both pass away. Eventually over time, these restrictions go away and then the money is then free to be spent. But until that time, you can see almost half of the net assets are completely off limits. So now we're going to look at the without donor restrictions, which is really kind of a misnomer as well. Because within this $970 million has the following categories: board designated endowment, which is a fancy way of saying they could do whatever they want with it; other designated, which is a fancy way of saying they could do whatever they want with it; undesignated, which is a fancy way of saying they could do whatever they want with it. All of these three represent whatever they could do. They could do whatever they want with this stuff. Over here, but part of the without donor is designated plan are the buildings. What do I mean by that? The building you're in now, I assume, is a university building. That building, the value of that building is actually part of without donor restrictions, because there's no donor restriction on the building. But let's face it, if they sold the building, they couldn't have class and you guys couldn't meet and all that kind of stuff wouldn't happen. So the 3-word phrase without donor restrictions in the private sector is misleading. And so to get at true reserves, we take out the with donor restrictions, we take out the plan, and what we're left with is about $400 million. So I'm not making any grand claims that all $1.889 billion is free. It's about $400 million that's left. So, and that's nice. It's grown over time. And now we're going to look at that. And so this is what they are. This is what they look like isolated over time, growing. And let's see. Now we're going to see if they're big. So is $411 million big? And that's what we're going to do now. So let me make this a little bigger so you guys can see it better. Don't know how big your screen is there, but hopefully you can see this. So we create the most important ratio to say, do they have money? Do they have, and I'm going to talk about what this represents in a second, is the primary reserve ratio, which is these unrestricted reserves at $400 million plus over the total operating expenses. So in 2024, Denver spent $610 million on everything, on your salaries, on the admin salaries, on mowing the lawn, on keeping the lights on interest on the debt, everything is in that 610. So when you have reserves, the primary reserve ratio has a numerator of the unrestricted reserves, the denominator of the expenses, and then we get the ratio of 67.4%. And what we do with that ratio is we multiply it by 12 to get the number of months. So they have 8 months of expenses in reserve. And I made a little chart here. 100% would be 12 months. That's like excellent. Very good is having 6 months of reserves is more than it's a very strong amount. And then solid 40%, decent 25, low level would be 10. And you can see over the last 9 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Denver has been between very good and excellent. It has gone down a little these last couple of years. This big increase was when the stock market really just took off. Now, are these reserves? Does this mean your president or your chancellor has 411 million in her or him? Him. Uh, whether he has $411 million sitting in a drawer in his office. That's not the case. It does represent, though, access to funds. It represents financial freedom and flexibility. And he certainly has, and the administration, the Board of Trustees, certainly has a solid amount of financial freedom and flexibility. Now, should they just say, okay, we're going to give everybody there a 10% raise, and we easily have the dollars to cut it? No, you don't want to spend normal operating expenses on this. However, they're still being built to a significant degree. And are we using the endowment enough? That's a question to be asked. And reserves, the things that you guys are worried about, the president of the United States is going to take away our grants. Well, if he does take anything away, it would be he's not going to be president for life. No chuckles on that one. Okay. You guys heard that he wants to be president for life. You guys heard that part. Okay. Anyway, I'm from New York, so you guys may not get the sarcasm being there in Denver. It's another joke. But
Crunch and Ernest.
Yeah, but I don't think what's going on now is a permanent condition. And if, let's say, he came to Denver and he said, I really don't like the way you guys were talking about me. I heard that conversation you were having, and I didn't like the things you were saying about me. I'm taking away I'm taking away your National Science Foundation grants of your faculty. Your faculty are too liberal, and I don't like what they're doing. I'm taking their grants away. Well, the reserves they have would easily handle that one-time absurd situation. So that's what reserves are for. But they certainly are in a very good position in terms of reserves. It's the number one strength of the university financially, are these reserves. And it's not like these reserves aren't represented by liquidity or real money. Why? Let's go. Sorry, I keep going backwards. I'm going to finish. I promise. I'm not going to be on here forever. They've got $1.4 billion in cash and investments, $1.357 billion in cash and investments. So a lot of that is restricted, but a lot of it is not. And they're free to spend. Now, let me say this about if the admin gets hold of this or is listening here now, which they may be, there could be admins in the room or people who are going to report to the admin. I don't care. If they were in the room, I'm not going to say anything different. But what they will say, if they were here, is they would say these categories, we have board designated. We already designated stuff. We can't spend it. No, if there was a no way you can get out of it contract, and the board had set the money aside and they signed contract, it wouldn't be in the without donor restriction category. They wouldn't put it there. So They could change whatever designations they've made. They could outvote themselves and do it again. So these really are free. This 400 million plus really is free for them to spend if they wanted to. So next thing we do, we look at, okay, how are the reserves compared to debt? Again, this said right here, this is a very strong ratio for DU. I asked Aaron if I'm allowed to use DU because I remember last time when I was there, I did see, referred to as DU. Do you guys say DU or what do you guys call yourselves?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Do
Yep.
you?
DU. Okay. So I'm down with the lingo. Okay. So uh I don't know if any of you met me when I was there. I don't know if any of you were around summer student 15. You guys are all too young. You probably weren't even around in 2015. Look how young you guys look. So, were any of you around in 15 when we were there in the summer?
Yeah. Couple.
Right? You guys remember us being there, and no one remembers us being there. How sad. We went to a Rockies game. You know, the Colorado Rockies are a professional baseball team. They play in Denver. No,
Pretty terrible.
you guys didn't know that? Okay. Well, anyway, we did go to a Rockies game that weekend. So anyway, this is good. Why is this good? I got reserves going up, and I've got debt going down, and that's good. I don't care who you are. That's good. And now the ratio is really strong. By the way, anything over 100% for this ratio is really high. And you guys are over 200%, more than twice as much reserves as debt. The reason why it was higher here in 16, you can see the debt was 112 and then a bunch of money got borrowed. What got built in 17, if I'm allowed to ask? What was the new building that got brought on that that money was borrowed for?
Don's. Also, Keystone Street.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Howard, we can't see your screen anymore for some reason.
Oh, that might be my fault.
There we go. Yeah, we got you. There was a residence and a commons with a cafeteria, a what?
We're well.
A career center, couple buildings.
But has there not, but is it true that there hasn't been a significant new building brought on since that time?
Correct.
Since then, correct.
And if I could ask you now, since we're in 25, are there talks or plans of
Oh,
any
yeah.
more?
They're talking about $120 million STEM building
And a welcome center.
and a welcome center. Yeah.
So when you say they're talking about, they are talking about borrowing the money to do this, or what are they saying? Or they're not saying anything?
They've broken ground on one of them.
They've set money aside in reserves for it, and I think they're currently seeking a creditor for the rest.
There's a hole in the ground, so like I'm pretty sure it's happening.
Yeah.
So that's instructive because that means that if they're using a combination of existing reserves and new debt, they certainly have room for new debt, and they certainly have room to use existing reserves. But here's the thing: you can't say I'm using existing reserves for a new building, and these are going to bring in new revenues, and they're going to be great. But you can't say that, and at the same time say, "Oh, we need to cut budgets, and we need to not hire full-time faculty. We need to, reduce what we're giving, people for travel and research." And you can't make that claim if you're using reserves for a new building. You can't. That just doesn't wash. So anyway, they can say whatever they want. But so let me talk about the bond rating. And there's a lot of words here. I'm sorry for that, but what I do here, when I show the bond ratings, I try not to use my own words. I try to use their words. So revises outlook to negative from stable. This is one of the reasons we're here. And look at the date, February 26th. I mean, how long ago is that? I mean, we're talking, within 2 months. So the university had 193 debt outstanding. The outlook to negative is driven by DU's sustained decline in graduate enrollment, which is down 10% since fall 2022. Additionally, first-time enrollment decreased by 19% during that time. This continued to a softening in operating performance, weakened EBITDA margins, that's cash flows basically, expected to continue through 2025 and possibly into 2026. The A1 rating, so let me explain what this means. The A1 bond rating, which I don't know if I have the bond rating. I don't have the bond rating distribution here. I should have. the bond ratings of the bond rating of A1 is fairly strong. It's not high, not low. It's kind of in the middle of where private universities are. They have a choice. They could say, okay, we could have taken this A1 rating and downgraded it to A2 or A3. They could have done that. But they also could have said, we're going to leave the rating at A1, which they did affirm, and downgrade the outlook. So bond ratings have two components to them. They have the letter and number combination, like A1 or AA1 or AA2, whatever it is, or BB. There's a lot of ratings below A1. And the second component is the outlook itself. It gives them, to use a term that you researchers refer to all the time, degrees of freedom. It gives the bond raters more degrees of freedom in terms of what they assign in terms of bond ratings. So they decided the more severe change is the rating. The less severe change is the outlook. It's still not good. And the biggest, as I said, the biggest issue for DU and is the enrollment. Unfortunately, I don't like the data I'm seeing on the, not like, as Aaron has, we try to get data back and forth. It's just the data situation is not great there. I'm sorry to tell you this. Your university does not exist. It's a private school. I understand that, but enrollment data is not what it needs to be, in my estimation. So, but we're going to get there. We can, one way or another, we're going to get there. We're going to give you guys the enrollment and show you. But this is happening, and this is definitely an issue. There's no doubt about it. So you have a couple. It's a complicated situation. Look, this is a several $100 million institution. It's going to have more aspects to it. The reserves are strong. The debt is low, but the enrollment, which is 62, almost 2/3 of your revenue base, is declining in terms of and driven by graduate enrollment, and that's a significant drive. That's a significant drop in a 2.5-year period. So, this is my comment. The yellow is my comment. So they said the affirmation of DU's A1 rating incorporates its strong level of financial resources, and my comment is in yellow. These are the strong reserves per the graphs above. So they are citing the strong graphs, and that's the number one reason why they didn't drop the rating, despite so you have all these things. You have these. I mean, I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth. Nothing is that simple. A lot of people want me to do it's good or it's bad. It's not. There's a lot of different things going on at the same time. You have strong reserves, low debt, and declining enrollment. And within enrollment, it's more on the graduate side, which you give less financial aid to. So it's more, there's a better yield for graduate students than undergraduate students. Significant wealth, that's the cash and investments. Provides very good coverage for operating expenses. That's the 200%. Sorry, that's this. So, they are citing the right things, well, because they know what they're doing. And then the margins, they're positive. But here's the thing, and I have to say this to you guys. I want to read this to you. I'm not going to be reading to you, but I just want you to read between the lines. Leverage relative to wealth will be improved compared to 2024's 4.6%, largely due to expense management actions, including a permanent reduction in personnel levels. So here's what happened. The CFO and the CEO fly to New York, meet with Moody's. These do not happen over Zoom. They fly, and they tell them, your president and CFO definitely told them, yeah, we know things are in trouble, but don't worry, we're firing a bunch of people. And Moody says, yeah. So, this cuts a couple of different ways here. And I know you guys are sitting there. This is what's going on here. They are saying the only reason we're in decent shape is because we're so good at running the place. And the reason why we're so good at running the place, we make the hard decisions to fire people. Well, that's a bunch of crap, any way you look at it, but that is what is going on. That is what they're saying. And so I think this is important. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but you guys are here today on a Thursday afternoon, and I got to tell you the truth. I just got to tell you everything that's going on. I mean, I'm looking at your faces, and you guys don't look happy, and I'm sorry about that. You know, Aaron, I didn't promise you I would make everyone happy. I promised you I would do the work. I didn't promise I would, you know, this is it though, Aaron. This is the situation.
We
Uh,
thought.
Excuse me, Howard,
yeah.
Andy Sherwood. Is anybody here from Mark, from the CFO's office on this call? Mark DiLorenzo, is anybody here from that office?
Andy, let's get to your questions at the end. Can you mind? Sorry.
No, I don't. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm sure they and so they definitely told them, don't worry, we're going to fire people. A balanced budget. I don't even know what that means. Budgets are always balanced. Are they talking about margins being higher than they were? I don't know. And by the way, an EBITDA margin is basically cash. It's earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization. It's a cash flowy type of measure. I'm not going to say it's pure cash flows, but it's pretty cash flowy. That it tries to look at just cash in, not quite cash in and cash out, but it's trying to get out. It's trying to get rid of all the expenses that aren't weird, one-time, non-operational, and just focus on the core stuff. That's what EBITDA is trying to get at. And a margin is cash in versus cash out and the difference between those things. All the money in versus all the money out, and the margin is the difference between them. So that's what they're talking about here. So 70% from student-related charges. So let's talk about. So I said to you at the start of this call that tuition revenue is about 62%, and the way I figured it from last year is tuition at 62. I've got auxiliaries at 9. That's obviously 71, which is right on target here, which is just about. And I'm sure there's just some decimal points we're off here. So that is the truth. There's no doubt that 70%. But I'm telling you, for a private, that's not ridiculously high. Yeah, it's high for an Ivy League school, but I just did American University and Sarah Lawrence for the last two private universities I did reports for. Both of them have the number I've highlighted on the screen being 80%, not 70%. I'm not saying 70 is good, but it's not in the private sector world, it's not unusual for the size of the university you are. The way private universities try to work, I mean, I heard someone say at the beginning talking about we're not a public. We can't. Okay, yes, that's the big issue with not being a public is the diversity in revenue source. My lame university, I use the word lame in the nicest way possible. We get a public. I teach at Eastern Michigan. We get a state appropriation every year from the state of Michigan. It covers about 18% of our revenue. 18% of our revenue. That's a huge revenue source. Your endowment is not covering 18% of your expenses. It's not. It's covering single digits. The endowment, you're using a low to mid single digit percentage of the endowment every year. That's the percent of the endowment that you're using to support operations. And secondly, that amount is about 5 or 6% of total expenses anyway. So the percent of the endowment being used and the percent that it covers for expenses is on the low side. That's why this 70 is so high. If you're talking about an Ivy League institution, the endowment is covering up to 30% of expenses, maybe even more. And plus they have research grants covering. Now you guys at Denver have research grants covering a solid portion, but not what it would be at a place with a medical school and a hospital like Harvard does. So, and here, you guys even mentioned this. So I guess it's kind of like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they're going to come. Is that the idea? I hope that's the case. And so that's it. So I think this is important that I show you everything. But there's no doubt it's a mix. The financial picture it's always complex at a place like this. It's always going to be complex. I can't just say, oh, they're doing great. Or, oh, they're doing horribly. There's mixtures of things. There's a lot going on at the same time. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Number of faculty. And I go through, here I'm using your IR as your institutional research office. So I'm using, and common data sets. This is all data that is publicly available on the DU website. So it populated fairly recently. The 25 data populated fairly recently within the last month, if I'm allowed to say that. So tenured, tenure track, non-tenure track, total full-time faculty, part-time faculty. Let's look at the graph. So the first thing I notice is the big increase in part-time faculty from 18 to 23, and then a decline for the last 2 years. Total full-time faculty generally up a little bit, but it looks like more of an increase in non-tenure track, and tenure track not doing so great. So let me give my talk here. So let's look at the tenure track line: 122, 117, 126, 128, 128, and now down to 101. Now, obviously, people who are tenure track, they get promoted and they become tenured. But what happens to tenured faculty? I'm an old guy. I'm looking at you guys who are all like 25 or 26 years old, so maybe you guys can't relate. But you know what? I don't know if you guys know this, but here's some news. This is why you guys are hiring me. Sometimes people retire. See that? See that information? How's that for information? Sometimes faculty retire. And so this, the movement from faculty from tenure track to tenure to retirement happens. The issue is what is going on when people retire. So what I see in this data, when I see a decline in tenure track and I see flat numbers in tenure, that tells me, and I see increases in non-tenure track over time, that tells me when people have been leaving recently, there's been some hiring of tenure track, but more on the non-tenure track and part-time basis. So when somebody leaves in one of your departments, it's not automatic that that line is replaced. Is that accurate in your experience there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So that is definitely what I see. And the thing is, research, obviously research is good for its own reason. If I stick to the financial part, research being what I have here, I have it to be, the grants and contracts and all that, between 10 and 13%, depending on the year, of total revenue. That's a solid amount for a private university your size. And it's important. In order to keep that up, in order to keep writing grants, in order to keep strong as a research institution, you have to hire new people. This decline in tenure track, now maybe there was a reason for this as a whole, but this decline in tenure track in general is not a good trend. It's not a good trend. And I don't know, my guess is with the part-time, it's so easy just to change them every year. Denver's obviously in a major metropolitan area, so it's not hard to find part-time faculty. And there are certain courses for which part-time faculty are probably better suited to be teaching. But on the other hand, this is still pretty heavy on the part-time usage and pretty heavy on the non-tenure track usage. So if DU is going to continue as a major research institution and have research as a big part of its financial and substantive profile, the hiring of tenure track faculty needs to be different than what it's been. That's how I feel. And let me be blunt. The reason why it hasn't been is because it's cheaper not to hire tenure track people. That's one. And two, I'm not accusing anyone in your administration of this, but in general, around the country, there is a philosophical opposition to tenure in general. And you can't blame the White House for this. Of course, I don't even know if they know what tenure is, I'm sorry to say, but you can't blame them for this. The provost, inside higher ed, every year they just came out with it about a month ago. The provost survey, half the provosts in this country, 60% of the provosts in this country do not believe in tenure. I don't know if your provost does. You can ask her or him how they responded to that survey. But more than half of the provosts in this country do not believe there should be tenure. They should believe there should be ongoing contracts, and that's it. Everyone should have like a rolling 3 or 4 or 5 year contract, and you basically have to, you basically are up for your job every year. That's what, and state legislators, what they want. Now, I've been through a lot in Colorado. I don't know if you guys know what we went through in a couple of years ago, try to get collective bargaining in your state, and we failed. I don't know if you know that in higher ed. Maybe you do. I mean, you guys are private, so we didn't. We were trying to do it with public higher ed. We're not the biggest fans of the AUP of your governor. I'm sorry to tell you this. He's a Democrat, but not really. If I'm allowed, am I allowed? God, I'm probably getting in a lot of trouble.
No.
You guys may have a different view of that. But he does have a lot of good things to say, and he's very, I've seen him speak. He's very smart and all that, and he's a very good speaker. But I don't think he's the most pro-labor person on planet Earth, if I'm allowed to say that. Is that a fair estimation of things? Am I allowed to say that out loud?
It's an understatement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'm not, this is, I'm not here to get DU faculty unionized. That's not going to happen. The, the law is such that unionization for the full-time tenure track faculty at DU is not it's not a possibility. And I'm not here to say it is. I wouldn't tell you that. But I still believe in unions. And I still think you guys could act collectively, even if you're not a union. So that's how I feel. Now, looking at the tenure numbers over time, using the common data set, which is a different kind of, an iPad is, these are different data sources. So I still get these numbers here that are not pleasant. Tenure track down, tenure up a little. There's enrollment over this period it went up. Now, the enrollment decline we've seen has more been, well, you guys know this, the last 3 years. It's really been the last 2 years, and certainly in graduate enrollment, it's been 22, 23, 23, 24, and now this year. I think there's 3 straight years of graduate decline, but not undergrad for the most part, but grad certainly. So, and total, but this is over, you see, I'm doing this over a long period of time, over a 7-year period. So here's enrollment, and you're meeting the increase of enrollment by hiring more tenure track, non-tenure track, and part-time, and not as many full-time faculty or tenure track faculty. That's a big decline. So that's, to me, is a problem. Okay, pie chart. Who teaches the students? I put it all in one pie chart, and this is what it looks like. That's not a great looking pie chart as far as I'm concerned, and maybe you guys feel differently. Now, the argument against this, I'm always trying to play devil's advocate here. This is just people. You guys teach a lot more than part-time faculty, maybe. What are your typical teaching loads? Are they 2-2 is your typical load, or 3-2? What's your load?
3-2.
We're on a quarter system, so 6 courses a year, 4 to 6 courses a year for full-time. Yeah.
So yeah, so 2-2. So in a semester, it'd be like between a 2-2 and a 3-2, somewhere in there. I think the way, and Aaron, I'm not done with you guys. I'm going to make another, we have another presentation somewhere in the future, in the near future. What I'd like to get, and the data, and maybe someone there can help me with this, in order to get the fullest picture of this graph, of this, this thing that you're looking at in front of you here, I want to know either the credit hours or the number of sections that are being taught by this. And that data's got to be available, but it's not available publicly. And I don't know.
Hard for that.
Yeah, and how hard could it be to tell us what this is on a credit hour basis? Because that really, you combine, and there you get the fullest story. Because you could, if the administration is sitting there, they're going to argue, yeah, we have more part-time people than anyone, but they don't teach 41% of the students or 41% of the credit hours. They teach 21 or 8, whatever it is. Okay, if that's the case, either then put it on your website or tell me, or send it to one of you who could send it to me. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking. I don't think I'm asking for the world here. I don't think it's a national security secret. But in there, and in defense of the administration, if I could defend them, the credit hour data is typically not available at a private institution. Most of the publics, yes, but most private institutions do not put on their websites the number of the number of credit hours taught by the different the different groups of people. The thing is, with graduate teaching is nuanced. I keep showing you guys 4 sides of the same issue. Graduate teaching: are you the teacher of record? Are you just grading? Are you teaching a subsection, or are you really the teacher of record who grades everything? And you're a graduate student who's grading everything. There's probably, I don't know if this number, what that includes. I mean, you guys tell me, are there graduate students teaching classes there who are the teacher of record? I'm hearing
Not included, but I don't know.
you've got a lot of graduate students there, and some of you probably know them.
Usually we hire them as adjuncts if they're going to be the teacher of record.
That's supposed to be the differentiator that we don't.
So what are they doing? What are the graduate teaching? So in iPad, what are they doing?
They're teaching assistants or research assistants.
If they were research, they wouldn't be into graduate teaching. That's graduate
Okay.
research is a separate. It would be is a separate category. So graduate teaching, what does a teaching assistant do? Do they grade? Is that what they're doing, or
Yeah, grading and office hours and
office
student
hours?
help, stuff like that.
And that kind of stuff.
Recitations, yeah.
And they get paid though, right? Are they getting paid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know how you guys. I mean, Nate, you're talking. What I mean, what do you? I mean, is this a lot of this going on, or is this a big thing, or is this just a couple of departments? Like, what is going on with this? If I could ask.
Someone just put in the chat that there is at least one unit where at least 40 sections are taught by grad students as the teacher of record.
Okay. So it sounds like there's probably a mixture of things going on. Yeah. Yeah. So now you guys see why this takes so long to do. All right. All right. Now let's talk about the employees, the non-instructional employees. At the end of this document, I have 2 pages of definitions. So one page is on the expense definitions and what are these. Let me just show you the definitions. I get to the end. Won't take me long. So these are the definitions of the categories. So this is what student management means. This is what service means. This is from the iPad's glossary, so you can look at this. These other categories of employment, I have links. iPads does not give a specific definition for these other categories. What they say is go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, go to the BLS site, and that will list, and it lists dozens of occupations under these headings. And so the good thing about iPads is everybody is playing by the same rules. Everybody has the definitions you see on this screen. And it makes comparing across institutions better, which I'm going to do, obviously, the latter part of which is coming up in just a couple of minutes, which is the fun stuff. At least to me, it's the fun stuff. I think it's if I'm sitting where you're sitting, I want to see how we compare to everybody else. So, all right, I'm not being critical here. I'm just going to say what I see. Okay, these are the categories. So from 20 to 21, the number of people in business and financial operations went from 217 to 537, and it stayed roughly like that since then. In that same year, management people, there was a loss of 49 management people. All the yellows had significant declines also. So there was a big shift away from, into this category and away from all of these categories. It is possible that when I see this, my experience as doing so many of these, when I see this, what it tells me, either a new person came in and said, you guys are doing this wrong.
Yeah,
And,
reclass.
you got to do it right. Or iPads said to you, or you work with iPads and they said, you guys are doing this wrong. Do it right. It's still puzzling to me because then this happens. Management employees go from 283, 316, 293, hello, 392. Again, these are changes that, it'd be easy. I'm going to say, oh, look at the increase in management. Yes, but is this real or is this what is this? I want to know what's going on here. I want to know why we have these big changes in these categories. Did you change your minds? Were you told to do something different? Did you really? I think my guess is there's a combination of hiring new people plus just changing the way you categorize some people. Look, this business and finance people, did you lay off 22 people? Maybe you did, but I doubt that. Look at the number of people. It went from 1625 to 1792. What's going on with that? You just told Moody's you're laying off a bunch of people. Well, what the hell's that? If you do, pardon my language. If you do it, I'm in New York. I can't help it sometimes. What's that? If this is going on, I don't get it all. I'm not getting all this. So, if I'm you guys and how to use this data, I'm sitting down, I'm getting my AUP leadership and my AUP membership. I'm making a whole bunch of questions. I want to know because we want to look, we're making the case. We as faculty are making the case that there's too much administration here. Well, I think we can make that case better if we had confidence of what's going on with these numbers. Where is this coming from? What is going on here? And maybe I'm wrong. I would predict that there's been a significant change in the people running this office, running the institutional research office over the last 5 years or 4 years. There's been new people in that office. It's also possible that the office reports to different people. At some universities, this office reports directly to the provost. In some, it reports directly to the president. So, and the president and the provost often have different ways of looking at the world, as if you guys didn't know that. Uh, so maybe that happened. Maybe the reporting structure changed. Uh, these are all possibilities, and I'm sorry to, but it'd be easy for me not to talk about any of these issues with you. But you guys are smart people, and I want you to hear everything that I'm thinking, and I'm going through all this with you. So I want to know all. I want to know what's going on here. This is not a normal. This is not a normal thing. It doesn't work like this typically, where I have these huge changes in management and the other employee categories over time without something going on. So anyway, so when you look at the change, you get this. You get a graph that those numbers lead to this graph. And the DU administration board, why? I mean, I want to know what's going on. Just tell me. Just please tell me. Why there's so many more here? And all right, salaries paid. Well, the salaries paid to the management category obviously went up quite a bit. And I did 21 to 24. The reason I did 21 to 24, I I could have made that graph on that change look a lot better. I went from here to here instead of from here to here. Because I thought 21 was such a, from what happened here was so weird. I decided it would probably distort things if I used this as my starting point. So I used this as my starting point and went from here to here. And let me give you another thing, and I'm going to put this in the chat. The iPads finance and HR reports were due to the feds on 4/15/2025. They were submitted. They are both very small PDF files. You should ask for them. See what they do. They said they had to. They were both due on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. I would love to have them. And Aaron, and all of you, I promise you, if you get them, I'll talk about you forever. Oh, you guys, I won't see these on the iPad's website until January of 26th. No, any of you, assuming there is a Department of Education still alive. See, I don't believe he's getting rid of the Department of Education. He has an executive order to get rid of it. He can't do that. He just can't. He can't just do whatever he wants. By the way, I just don't believe we live in a country where the guy can just do whatever he wants. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but he can't just dismantle the Department of Education, which houses the research you see on the screen here. It's just not going to happen. It would boggle my mind. Why would you want to do that? I don't know why you'd want to do that. Anyway, but I would like to see that iPads data. Maybe that will clear some things up. Who knows? And plus, it will give me another year to look at stuff. So the number of people paid, the salaries to management have gone up quite a bit. These are the average salaries of these people at the end of 24. The average management person makes that. And these are the other non-instructional categories. We're going to get to the faculty. These are the other categories. That's not unusual.
You know what my puppy coat is? How have I missed them?
No, next one there.
Okay. All right. That wasn't me, by the way. We do have a dog here. That is Roxy. You see, that is Roxy. But you guys see Roxy in my picture. She's here. She's not here on that couch, but she's here. She's in this house or playing outside with her next door neighbor dog. Okay. But she is around, I promise. So these functional categories are per the audited statements. And these are defined on page 27, 28, the last page. The main categories are instruction and institutional support. You mentioned there were, I assume, I don't assume, let me ask you this. Are there any of the employee groups unionized on your campus?
Well,
Custodians,
Yeah,
maid,
okay.
and Zamboni drivers.
yeah.
How many Zamboni drivers could there be?
4.
Fair union.
Well, that's yeah, okay. There's 4 of them. All right, there you go. Isn't the season over, by the way? Didn't the season end?
Yeah.
Didn't Western Michigan win?
Yep.
Yep.
I thought so. Yeah. And by the way, I just did a report for them also. That did nothing for the finances of Western Michigan, if I could say that. And we're all very excited, but didn't do anything for their money. So anyway, the two main categories are instruction and institutional support. The other, my point is some of the unionized employees are in different, they're in different employment groups. These are expense categories. I just want to distinguish these are employment categories and these are expense categories. They kind of like mostly management goes into institutional support, whereas the Zamboni drivers, maybe they'd be in sports. I'm thinking. I don't, where would they be here? They would probably be in auxiliaries because that's athletics. You can see intercollegiate athletics is part of auxiliaries. So I'm just showing you how things work in terms of not to, it doesn't, I just don't want to feel as if you guys are looking at this stuff and it's like some mystery to you. And I'm, trying to take you behind the curtain a little bit and how this stuff all works, instead of just throwing a bunch of numbers at you, which I'm doing anyway. But try to do it with a little, not be as blunt as I usually am about it. So anyway, institutional support, 13% of expenses, instruction, 37%. Everybody thinks faculty are 90% of the cost. Well, obviously we're not. Academic support is the deans, the associate deans, and the librarians. Any librarians here, by the way? Any guys librarians?
Yep.
Good. Well, I'm very partial to librarians for many reasons, but the most important, my wife's mother, who's passed away, she was a librarian and spent her whole life as a librarian in Midland, Michigan, and she was a pioneer in that field, ahead of her time as a woman. So we've always loved librarians and books in our house and all that for that reason. So for all you librarians out there, and let me say this about the librarians at universities, you guys know everything that's going on.
The archivist as well.
For whatever reason, the librarians just know everything. So when you want to know what's going on, you just go there. And plus, at my place, I have seen all the librarians. I have all my county student group. We do everything at the library, so I get to go over there and find out what's going on every week. That's one of the reasons I go over there. So a great love for librarians. Always have, always will. So for whatever that's worth, and so, but librarians are in academic support with the academic advisors and things of that nature, and the deans. So it's really and maybe even the institutional support people, the people that do the IPEDS data, they may be in there also. The student service are the people more counseling, dormy kind of people. Public services, media, research is research, and auxiliaries, housing, dining. You can see auxiliaries. It's both. It's the 9% for auxiliaries, both on the revenue and expense side, it's about the same thing. I still think it's low. I still think that's low. I just don't think you have as big a percentage of your students living on campus as other privates your size. That's my view. Okay. This is the salary only component of the expense. So let me show you this. Instruction costs were $230 million in 2024. The salaries, just salaries paid to the people in this room and part-time everyone, $139 million. So what is in the 230 that's not salary? Benefits, utilities. They allocate depreciation, they allocate interest costs, they allocate admin costs, they allocate all sorts of costs into instruction besides just paying people. So this 230 million, it's 139 a salary. Benefits, it's not done separate, it's not reported separately anymore. Benefits is typically 25% of that roughly. They'll say it's 40, but it's really only about a quarter of it. And the rest of it, utilities, depreciation, interest, et cetera, maintenance, all those things go into it. To me, this is the purest way to look at an expense of an institution, and especially when comparing to peers, because what this does, what we were able to do here, is look at only cash. This is just cash paid to people. And you can see the percent to instruction has been pretty steady. Down a little, 45, it was 47, 46. Institutional support is also down a little. This is not, and I'm going to show you in the peer comparisons. This is there's nothing that stands out. When I look at this, I could have predicted that you're not going to be that different from your peers, and I'm going to show you you're not. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's just the way it is. It's not that high. Some of this could be these categorization issues and which they're putting where, but The 45% for instruction, it seems low, but we'll see when we compare to peers in a bit. So these are the two pie charts from 2024 that I just showed you. This is the total expenses that includes utilities, plant, benefits, and everything. This is just salaries, nothing else but salaries. And the two big numbers are instruction and the green for admin, the upper level admin. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff, which is your salaries over time. Again, the 2025 AUP data came out last week. So, but Aaron, we've been talking back and forth. I know you made a presentation to your administration last week, and the stuff's coming fast and furious. But why not put the 2025 data in? So I'm lucky enough, because of my relationship with the AUP, to get the Excel file behind all this. And this is what I saw. So what happened, this is what happened, and this is, again, this is the data that your administration submits to the AUP. And you can see the full associate assistant, the instructor category goes 3 zeros, 1, 3 zeros, 20. The lecturer, so what happened here? I don't know what happened here. It's hard to know. The number of people went down. The number of people was down. The assistance is mostly your decline in tenure track. That's what mostly that is. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why this category also popped up with an average salary of $105,000, higher than your assistants. So your lecturer is 162. The lecturers are typically your non-tenure track. And you can see the lecturers, the average salary is 76,000. What I take all this to mean is I think it used to be the case when we first started doing this, always look at the different ranks. But I think the way ranks get and the way administrations kind of muddy the waters, I think the all ranks is probably the best way to look at what's going on. And plus, in that room there, I'm sure there are, not you are a mixture of all of these ranks. I don't know if there's any of this category there, but my guess is a mixture of all these ranks there. And so I think it's best to do that. And so let's look at some graphs. So you can see I settled on doing the all rank stuff versus inflation over the 18 to 21 period, not quite. 21 to 25, inflation jumped up quite a bit. Your salaries went up, but not as much as inflation. And over the 7-year period, not keeping up with inflation either. The lecturer salaries are the lecturers did let's look at those raw numbers. 60, 63, 66, 66, boom, right here. I don't know what happened, but that went from 66 to 79. The number of lectures, that's a big increase, by the way. I mean, that's almost a 20% increase in 1 year. That is a 20% increase in 1 year. You don't see that. Then down to 71, up to 79. I don't quite know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on with those. But that's what got reported. Okay, let's do it versus peers. These peers were chosen by the administration. Your administration chose these and submitted them to the federal government. IPED is Institutional Post-Secondary Education Data System of the U.S. Department of Education, run by the wrestling people. That's a joke, by the way, but that is true. You guys know the wrestling person runs the. No, nobody's with me. That news doesn't get out there to Denver.
I hear you, Howard.
All right, just making sure. Don't you guys find it a little odd that a wrestling person is running the Department of Education, or is it just me who thinks that?
It's insane.
Okay, all right. I think that's worse than anything. That's just me. I just think that's like Twilight Zone stuff. I don't know. It's just crazy to me. So, all right, there's 22 peers, including Denver. You guys, full professors, 16, associates, 16, assistants, 17, lecturers, only 13 report, and all ranks, 17 out of 22. These three did not report to the AUP in 2025. St. Louis, Santa Clara, Syracuse. I'm going to let you guys. So this data, I assume a lot of you are AUP members, but not all of you. I'm hoping all of you become AUP members. But those of you who are AUP members probably got an email last week or last Thursday or Friday or whatever it was, telling you about the results of the survey. And so you may not have seen the data that I put on the screen here. You may not have seen this or digested it yet. So I'm gonna, I know, I mean, I know we have time, there's time constraints here, but I'm just gonna give you guys a minute to look at this if you don't, because if I were you, if I were in your shoes, I'd be interested in this, and you haven't seen it before. So I'm gonna sit back for a minute and let you guys look if you don't mind. And this is I sorted it by the all ranks. It's sorted in that way. So that's how I sorted the data. All right. But I used to teach at SMU, in case anybody cares. And I went to school at Fordham, went to law school there, in case anyone cares about that either. And done reports for several of the schools here. Just leave it at that. Been to a lot of them. Okay. So here's the graph. Maybe this is better. Eesh. This is just all ranks, not anything else. Sorry. You could be at Dayton, where my sister-in-law and brother-in-law went. They met at Dayton. Okay, many years ago, but you could be there. Could be at Marquette. As Al McGuire used to say, God doesn't pay well. There you go. That's a joke too. He's dead, by the way, Al McGuire. He's a basketball announcer. He used to coach Marquette. He's a basketball coach at Marquette. Always complained about his salary. So, all right, enough of that bad news. So here's some worse news. So I decided to look at the salaries from 21 to 25. Okay, you were really bad in 21, but now have things gotten worse? And they have. For full and associates, they've gotten worse. You were 12,000 behind, now you're 19,000 behind on average. Associates were 951 behind then, now you're 10,000 behind. Assistants stayed about flat. Lecturers did a little better. All ranks lost a little bit, not terribly. In general, this is not a very, it's not a very wonderful graph. Note this note here, DU has more associates than any other rank. So for the second largest rank is full. So the two most popular ranks for the people in the room, for your university, are the ones that did the worst. Don't, yeah, again, I'm just reporting. I could not say this, but this has to be said because this is what happened. And Aaron, you can be mad at me and not mad at me, but this is the way it has to be. I gotta tell you guys the truth, one way or the other. I can hide this from you, and what's the point? And I know you're miserable about this. And if it means anything to you, you guys make a hell of a lot more money than I do. If that means your salaries are way higher than mine. I don't make what full professors make at your place. So if that means anything to you, which I know it doesn't, but it should help a little that we make our average salary. The all rank salary at my place is in the low 80s. So there you go. So
If you really want to make people mad, show them the upper administrator salaries next.
we're getting there, but that won't make them mad. This makes me, because yeah, it may make you a little mad, but this is worse. To me, this is worse, Aaron, because they have not been giving you guys good rate. That means for the last 4 years, as we've seen this change in management and enrollment has been an issue, but they're not giving you guys have not gotten great raises over the last 4 years. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I see. Are you guys been getting good raises the last couple of years? Or why are you laughing?
Raises below inflation, salary freezes in 1 year.
Yeah, so it couldn't have been good. This data wouldn't look like this if it was good. And there's no way you're getting huge raises. So anyway, I'm going to move on. So this data looked at iPads where all the peers report. So it's 24, not 25. It's iPads, not AUP, and all the peers are included. Unfortunately, you're toward the bottom of this group too, and it's not much different. So sorry. It's just not any better. It's just not It's only a year ago, and even when you include the 3 schools that AUP didn't cover in 2025, it's not significantly better. All right, we're getting to that. So this is the salary spending of DU versus all these peers. This is the the expense method, which just looks at the salaries of the different expense categories. And so instruction of the 25, you're 12th highest. You're right at the mean, 45.3. Institutional support, you're 14%, is even a little below the mean. So, but most of these categories, you guys are, I'm not seeing a big difference in the way the money is being spent at DU in terms of salaries than your peers. I don't know if that makes you feel good or bad, but that's what it is. You're a little high in academic support, which is the deans. So the public service, I wouldn't go crazy about because a bunch of them have zeros in them. So you could see how a lot of universities just put things in different places, but you got zero in them. And auxiliary is kind of on the low side also. 4% is not high. That's not a big number. And if you look at the auxiliaries, I mean the institutional support, they're not varying that much. They know we're looking. They know it. They know we're looking at this category. They know it. In my state, the state appropriation is based in part on reductions in this category, if you could believe it. So everybody knows about this now. You know, when Rudy and I first started this, Rudy Fichterbell and I first started this 20 years ago, they didn't know we were looking. Now they know we're looking. So there you go. Here we go, Aaron. This is it. So this is the last slide. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can get it all in there. So this comes from the IRS 990s. These are the W-2 salaries for the year. This last one is the year ended June 30th, 23 that was submitted in May of 24, and it covers W-2 calendar 2022. So the W-2 that's due next month, which you should ask for, is going to give us the calendar 23. It's kind of a year behind, 2 years behind. Having said that, I went back 3 years. What is the deal with vice chancellors? What do these people do? I have the names here because I don't know. I don't know if you guys all know their names. I don't know these people. I'm sure they're really good people. There's no claim that they're not. But why are there so many vice chancellors? That's a
We
lot
don't know
of,
what they do either.
but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Yep.
I mean, the men's ice hockey coach is probably not a surprise that this person 3 years ago made $721,000. Men's basketball, men's lacrosse. Really? Men's lacrosse, $331,000. I love sports more than anyone in the whole world, but really, men's lacrosse, do you really need to pay that person $331,000? I'm not getting that. There's also some former people being paid on here. I don't know about that. I don't know what contracts are written that way, but at Wayne State, it's here in Detroit, and obviously and other people there, and we've done a lot of stuff together. They call this their swimsuit issue. They just put this out. It's a public institution, but they have the admins like you guys do, and they just put it in a newsletter to the membership, and they don't say anything, and people look at it. So, and look at the averages I have over here. So this is how many people are covered. This is the total dollars, the average salary, and the median. The average is going to be higher, driven up by the chancellor salary, which is there. I really would like to see next month's 990 when it comes out. And
Yeah, in about 2 weeks here at DU. I just
Good.
checked with the CFO's office.
well, send it to me. Can I see it, please?
Yeah, Howard, I can do it. Sure. I'll get your from Aaron. I'll get your email.
And what about those iPads? You guys get, I promise you guys this. You guys get me the 990 that iPads data. I produce something for you in the next version of this that will be even better.
Yeah, we look at that 990 very hard over in finance department. Sorry.
So this is the average faculty salary, all ranks. Again, like I said, 10 years ago, I would have been skewered for using all ranks. But I think there's just too much going on with the different ranks. I just think there's too many changes. So I've come to the conclusion that all ranks is a better way of looking at things. And plus, if I'm an associate, do I always care what fulls make? If I'm an assistant, do I care what the associates make? This way, we bring everybody in. We don't isolate anybody. So, uh, but there you go. Those are the all rank faculty salaries, and this is from years ago. It's a couple years old now, but I just think my view of all this: too many, too much. That's my view. Too many, too much. I don't. This is really a lot. Now, obviously, they're different people. I try to when I do these, I try to follow the people. You know what I'm saying? From year to year, and you know, and not all the same. You know, sometimes people are interims or they're not reported or they're only part year and they drop off this thing. You don't know what's going to be put on this thing. You don't work at a public, if this is a public institution, everyone's salary is out there. There's not a book out there with with the salaries of the people that work there. I assume there's not. Uh, and so the only thing we got is this. And but we also have the iPads categories that I showed you. The other thing we got, of course, is besides the faculty salaries, of course, we have the salaries of all the different employment groups. These are just averages of the people in these groups. So you can see the average management salary is 117. Okay. And now we come down here and we see, what do we see? You know, we see numbers. The average of this group is in the 300s, the median also in the 300s. So obviously it's not meant to be the same, but it just shows you that management group is including a whole slew of people that you may not think of. Like, yes, these people are all in that category, but so are a lot of people making $80,000 too, who are in that list. That's why, to me, it's important to know that, because if we're going to talk about, if we, faculty, administrators, students, if we're going to talk about changes that are being made, we need to know what the deal is. We need to know what exactly, how many administrators there are and what they're being paid. We have senses of it from all of this, but I would like more clarity on what's been submitted to iPads in terms of those management numbers, so we can get more clarity on what's going on there, and that helps us make better decisions. Because I still believe, looking at all this data on this side, if there are cuts to be made, I still think the admin side is too high here, and the instruction side is not. Uh, there's not that many. You know, the faculty, number of faculty has not increased that much, and the salaries aren't going up. So uh, that's how I feel looking at all this. And next time, the things still to be done, we got to dig into the enrollment side, and we'll look at deeper enrollment, and I'll try to get what I can from auxiliaries using. The common data sets. I'm gonna go back in time and see how many people they claim are actually living on campus in the dorm. They actually tell you how many people are living in the dorms and campus-owned housing. I think, Aaron, you mentioned that there's a lot of students that live in apartments owned by the university, or owned or nearby. Are they owned by the university or not owned by the university?
I just don't know.
Both.
Both.
Both. So I'll use but there is public data to use with that. But I still want to, and I'll try to make some comparisons to the peers. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think what I think is the case is that there's not a requirement that like first and second year students live on campus. Is that true? Or is that not true? The first and second year students have to live in the dorms at DU.
Not if you live with your family within a 45-minute.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people will say that they like live with their family, but they actually don't, and they're living in apartments.
Yeah, so I think I'm not saying they should rethink the strategy at all, but I think there is a lot of money being left on the table. But on the other hand, you may not attract that student to come to DU if you don't let them live at home or in an apartment by themselves. That may drive them away. So there's it's not automatic that if you make them live there, you're gonna get that revenue. You may drive students away, which you obviously don't want to do. You know, you definitely want people who are local. What do you think is the percentage of people from Colorado? Like, what is your percent in state? Do you guys have a sense of that? Because that data is always kind of hard to get at. What is your sense of the percentage of people that have they told you this, or is this anything anyone knows or
I've
cares?
said this in some meeting or another. It's high, but I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not as important as it is in a public institution where the tuition is there's a tuition
25%, someone said
45.
25.
Also, they were like half an hour into when we said we would have a happy hour and there's a bartender here.
Yeah.
And this may people want some beer.
So I tell you what, Howard.
I'm done. I'm sorry. I told you guys I wouldn't stop talking, and now I'm stopping talking.
When we do bring you to Denver, which I still want to do because you're doing such a good job for us, we'll get him a cocktail from our bartender who we hired. We're losing folks, but yeah, why don't anybody who wants to drink, grab a drink if you're over 21.
You are 21.
There are some non-alcoholic drinks too.
Hey, Aaron?
I want to just pose an observation. It's in the narrative that I sent to the trustees. I'll actually present it next week. But the narrative is that we're a wealthy university with the reserves that you described. And yet, because we choose to spend on upper level administrators, on pet projects of donors and upper level administrators, that doesn't come out in the data that you see here, but we just know about these big expenses like a $34 million mountain campus that nobody uses, $5 million on 4D, which is a silly project. Anyway,
Hey, Aaron?
that chooses to spend a lot of money on pet projects and in order to pay for that, squeezes salaries for faculty, fires staff, and raises tuition. Is that consistent with what you saw?
Yeah, the laying off of the staff is something they told Moody's is going to happen. I have not seen the laying off of staff though. I've seen increases in total non-instructional employees. Remember that Moody that came out a month ago, so they're saying they're going to do that going forward. That they're going to lay. So the layoffs are definitely either about to happen or are going to happen at the end of the academic year. That's what they told them. I read it to you, and that's what they told. That's a public document at some level. I mean, all you got to do is have an unpaid subscription to Moody's, and you can get that, which I don't pay for. But I got that document, and they told them we're laying people off. I don't see the layoff need. The reserves are really strong, but I think to me the issue is enrollment. That is the concern. But I always think that faculty, the people in your room there, should be working with the administration on enrollment. That to me is the whole story. You should always be working together. Let's forget the expense side. Let's talk about I always think the revenue side should be more instead of because when all you do is cut, you send out a message to your employees, to your students, to the community. We're in trouble. Things are bad. It's not going to help attract people to go there when you're cutting. Cut. Lay off. That just is not the message. And you guys and Denver's got the ability because of the strength of the reserves. You have the ability to try to handle short-term.
Aaron, I got to interrupt here because I got to get going too. Listen, thanks, Howard. I don't agree with everything you said, but Aaron, this is recorded. I would like you to send this to our CFO and have him take a look at it. Can you do that?
Yeah, well, I don't know who's recording it. I tried to, but somebody else is recording. I'll get the recording. But indeed, when we get Howard to campus, I want him to present to the students, to the staff, to the faculty. And if the CFO will listen to it, I want him to hear it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
There's two sides to every story, sir.
That's not true.
There are probably more than two sides.
Well, I'm sorry, Professor, but you're wrong. Okay, there are two. Wake up. Thank you.
There are more than two.
Now, that could be two. That could be two.
Any other observations?
Or questions?
I have a question,
Yeah.
actually. So like for what should students be like advocating for? Like what should we be like spreading among our community members and like asking the university to do? Besides be more transparent?
I think for students, it's always the cost. College is very expensive. Students should always be advocating for, on the spending side, more money to be into the classroom, more money into financial aid, and try to get tuition as low as possible. And make sure that the spending is for academics and not for things that are not towards student education and student success. And college is so expensive. It is so unbelievably expensive. And the number one reason students don't finish is it's financial. That's the number one reason. And so anything that helps students get through, I think is beneficial. And in terms of students getting through, if there's going to be reductions in faculty or in classes offered, all that's going to do is make it harder for you as a student to finish. You want choice, you want classes, you want to be able to graduate as soon as possible within a reasonable amount of time. And if you're a student at a university that is cutting classes and reducing classes, then that's not where you want to be. So you should be advocating to make sure that there's no cuts to the mission, that all the dollars are being put, the resources are being spent on the academic mission, and that faculty are not laid off. Because even though, layoffs don't affect you directly, if there's fewer faculty, your classes are gonna be bigger and you're gonna have fewer sections to choose from. It's going to affect you. And uh, when they're not hiring, and in addition, I don't know how much research students do with faculty there. I don't know collab- if there's collaborations between students and faculty on research projects. But if you don't hire tenure track faculty, those opportunities for students are not going to be there, not as plentiful. I mean, one of the attractions for a student is, oh, I'm going to go to a place where all this cool stuff is going on, all this research is going on. Well, if you're not hiring new tenure track faculty, then who do you think is going to do the research? Part-time faculty are wonderful people. I was one. Non-tenure track people are wonderful people. I was one. But we don't have time to do research or the security to do research. It's tenure track faculty that do the new research. And if they're going to stop hiring or reduce the hiring of tenure track faculty, that's going to mean fewer opportunities for students to collaborate and do research. And it's going to mean fewer choices in terms of classes. So those kind of things I think affect the things that faculty are asking for, are the things that students are asking for in terms of faculty hiring and resources put into the core mission as opposed to something that's not the core mission.
Other observations?
And we'll work on a date, Aaron, to get out there. You guys are going, your semester doesn't end till
Yeah, we go through June, so let's give you a chance to finish your grading, finish your classes.
but, in May, I'm a free guy. So
I like it. I like it. People were talking about May.
I do want to get
Yeah.
additional data that I asked for. You guys are going to get me this thing. You guys are going to get me these things. I'm hoping.
I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna do what I can. And let me ask a clarification, and this is for my own, you saw the presentation that I sent to the Board of Trustees. I look at that salary comparisons and I see the different categories. And for me, it was most interesting to present the comparison of assistant, associate, and full to our peers, just because there is a whole lot of kind of, to me, confusion in terms of the way in which the other categories are
Absolutely.
defined both here and in other places. So by comparing those, I thought it was easily comparable. I'm not clear in the data if they do anything like multiply out the average salary of, say, the full professors by the number of full professors before making their comparison, or they just take the averages and compare them.
They equate. What they try to do is put everyone on the same, equate everyone to a 9-month. That's what they try to do.
But so it's the average full at our peers versus the average full of us, and the average associate of our peers and the average associate at us. That's what they're comparing.
Yes.
It's fair for me to kind of take those and say, on average, our assistant, associate, and full are 12,000, 11,000 behind.
10,000 behind, whatever it is. Yeah. There's no doubt that's the case.
Right.
And one thing we could try to do, and it's hard to do, to make the case even stronger that you just made, Aaron, is to show just a couple of positions, like the president's position, the CFO position, the senior counsel, to show those salaries of your peers. I got a feeling you guys are a little higher than them. But I think what I see though in the 990 data is there's so many of these vice. I wasn't joking about the vice. That's not a joke. I'm not being facetious. There are a lot of vice chancellors. When I look at other 990s, I don't see a list like that. I mean, what is going on? Who are these people and what are they doing?
No.
I'm sure they're good people, by the way. I'm sure they're good people, but I don't know what they're all doing. It seems like for a university your size, you've got a lot of people making $300,000 and above. Uh, and I don't
That's a-
know, I don't know
Yeah.
what they're doing. I don't know.
And
To me, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. I think that's a lot of money to pay somebody.
It's annoying that the 990s come out 18 months late. It's also annoying that we're getting a new provost. Our provost stepped down, and the ad for the new provost lists a salary of 550 to 700 grand. Look at his face.
Are you kidding me? 550 to 7 grand. Roxy's laughing about that one. Okay, well, uh, you know, I know we want to come out in May, but you know, the admin guy said that the 990 is basically done. That's what I heard. I heard him say that the 990 is basically done.
Yeah.
So could you guys get me that, please?
Every year I ask, and every year they tell me you'll get it on May 15th when we report it publicly. And they send it immediately on that day.
You
so
heard
they
the
are
guy.
honest
You
about
heard
that,
you
but-
heard the guy though. I'm not making it up. He said it's done. You heard him.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't he say that? Am I making I'm not making that up. He said it's done. So if it's done, give it to us. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, they know how much they paid. They know how much they paid last month. Much better to, 18 months ago.
Tell them if I gave them like $20, would they give it to me? If I gave them like $20, would they give me that 990?
No, I don't. One other observation. So one of the things that I tried to do in that presentation was sort of trace out the aggregate spent on the chancellor, provost, and their cabinets. So I did pull out the hockey coach. I pull out the whatever. So just that very upper administration, the people that are in that upper administration building, and show that over time. And even with the people dropping in and dropping out, it does show a significant increase over time. And we're looking at something like $7.5 million just for them.
Yeah.
And then if we know that in the last 2 years, there were 5% merit raises and 3% merit raises, and a CFO hired between 175 and 450 grand, and a COO hired at 175 to 400 grand. Is it fair to say that by now we think that might have increased, up to the 9 million or so range?
Yeah. I had this total salaries of 9 million, and there were just a couple of coaches in there. You take the coaches were like, I had a 9 million and change, and the coaches were like 1.2, 1.3. So yeah. And remember that data was 2022.
Right. And then adding in, like I said, those two new positions who are like the second and third highest people.
Yeah, but we're not on that list. Yeah. And so that's 20, you have 23, you have 24, you have new people, and you have the raises. Yeah. That's easily.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing that I observed was that the faculty salaries have gone up something like 4.5. I can't remember the number. I sent it to you, but 4.5, 5%. But when looking at the increase in that cabinet, it's gone up at least twice as much as faculty salaries.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt that's happened. And let me say this as to what's effective and what gets them going. I think what gets them going more is the peer stuff. They don't take this the wrong way, Aaron. They don't like you so much. Not you. You heard that you could just feel the animosity coming. I could hear it and feel it. They don't. But what pisses them off is when you show them that, you guys. This is when you show them the salaries of the faculty versus the peers, and if we can get a good, and I'll hopefully we'll do it. The salaries of the upper admins versus the peers, that will really get them. I really think that will get them. But we also got. I mean, I bristle at the suggestion that we only gave one. That you and I were only talking about one side of things. We certainly talked about the downsides in terms of the enrollment and the cash flows. So I don't. People are not always fair, but they. I could just hear it. I hear the adversarialness, and you guys aren't even unionized. So I'm sorry to tell you this, but I've been to a lot of these things. They don't like you guys. I'm sorry. Did you guys know that, or is this just news to you?
Well, so I'm presenting to the Board of Trustees. This is the first time I'm presenting to them about 2 years since being on that subcommittee of a subcommittee. And at one point they said that they preferred that I log in by Zoom so they can mute me.
I definitely see that, and that's not great. No offense, that's not great to get to affect change, because you have the student sitting there. She wants. If she sees an admin fighting with faculty, I don't think that's what they want to see. I'm not saying everyone should get together and just hug and sing kumbaya, But I think we could do a little better than that. I think we could do a little better than where we are by presenting the data. Uh, and I think we'll just keep doing it. We'll just keep, but I just think we have to keep presenting the data without, uh, just show it to them. But I really want to see everything. And there's some things I just don't, I want to get to. I want to get to the iPad data. I want to get to the 90 data. And then we can start getting at these things and affect some change there and get membership going. So, all right. Can I go
Well,
eat dinner now?
Appreciate everything you're doing, Howard. Thanks so much. Thank
And
you.
we'll work on a date if you guys will have me out there. And
Yeah,
I'd love to come out there. It'd be fun.
we'll get you to a Rockies game.
I am a big baseball fan, as you can.
Yeah, well, I can promise you that whoever's playing them will win. So how's that?
That is not true. They got some talent. They got some talent.
Not-
Have you guys
not-
been to Rockies? You guys don't go to Rockies games? No one goes?
I go sometimes, but yeah.
The
There.
attendance is very good there. The attendance is very strong there. All right, guys, I'll see you.
All right. Thanks, Howard.
Yep.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.